conversations with my shadow, mindfulness, shadow work, and the science of emotional freedom. Introduction. Why you can't heal what you refuse to face. Some wounds don't bleed. They echo. They show up in the way we flinch at kindness, in the way we laugh too loudly to cover the ache, in the way we chase unavailable love because it feels like home, in the way we keep choosing chaos, then wonder why peace feels like punishment. We look fine, productive, pleasant, polished even, but inside we're carrying rooms full of ghosts, memories we swore we buried, voices we absorbed as truth, shame we inherited, rage we tucked neatly beneath smiles. We call it being strong. But what if I told you the parts of you you've tried hardest to hide are not your weakness? They're your compass. That the outbursts, the patterns, the numbness, the pleasing, the perfectionism aren't random flaws but encrypted messages from your shadow? That the shadow isn't your enemy, but your oldest friend, the one who remembers what you survived when everyone else forgot. The lie we were taught, that healing means getting over it. We've all been told, just let it go. But how do you let go of something that lives inside your body? How do you let go of the inner child who still thinks everything is her fault? How do you let go of a belief system built on survival? Most of us don't let go. We disguise. We repress. We perform. We write affirmations in journals while secretly feeling broken. We give great advice we can't take ourselves. We keep achieving, hoping that if we become enough, the pain will finally leave us alone. We try to fix what we never even pause to understand. But healing doesn't happen by plastering light over the dark. It happens when we stop running from ourselves. Shadow work, the path you didn't know you were already on. You don't need to be a monk, a therapist, or a guru to do shadow work. You don't even need to know what you're doing yet. If you've ever paused mid-argument and asked yourself, why am I reacting like this? You've touched it. If you've ever cried after pushing away someone who loved you, you've tasted it. If you've ever felt guilt for feeling anger or shame for needing too much, you've been standing at the door of your shadow. The shadow is not the villain. It's the hurt child, the silenced woman, the guarded heart. It's the you who was told, don't cry, don't feel, don't be too much. And so she disappeared. Not in truth, only in appearance. She began living in your subconscious, shaping your reactions, filtering your beliefs, picking your partners, choosing your battles, sabotaging your blessings until you meet her again. She runs the show. So what is the shadow? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst who coined the term, described the shadow as the unconscious part of the personality that the conscious ego does not identify with. In plain terms, it's everything about you that you've disowned, rejected, or been shamed into hiding. It's not just your bad traits. It's your brilliance, too, your creativity, sensuality, confidence, wildness, everything you weren't allowed to be. Your shadow includes the anger you suppress to keep the peace, the grief you never cried, the jealousy you judge but secretly feel, the truth you tone down, the needs you've denied, the boundaries you never learned to set, the dreams you abandoned to feel safe. Shadow work isn't about shaming these parts into submission. It's about turning toward them gently, with curiosity, with compassion, and with the understanding that every part of you has a reason for existing. Why you can't heal what you refuse to face. Here's the truth most self-help skips. You can't positive think your way out of trauma. You can't meditate your way past abandonment wounds. You can't vibe higher than your nervous system allows. Healing isn't always pretty. It's often messy. It's crying on the floor because you realized your coping mechanism was your personality. It's seeing your childhood and your relationships and having the courage not to run. It's asking, what parts of myself did I silence to be loved? What memories did I exile just to keep functioning? Who did I become to survive? And then it's sitting with those truths, not to blame your past, but to finally reclaim your future. What this book will teach you. Conversations with My Shadow isn't here to sell you a 5-step fix. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about coming home to the version of you who's been waiting. Throughout these pages, we'll explore what shadow work really is and why it's the missing piece in most healing journeys. The neuroscience behind repression, triggers, and emotional numbing. How your childhood wounds shape your adult patterns. Mindfulness tools to help you sit with discomfort without drowning in it. Creative practices like journaling and mirror work to communicate with your shadow. And ultimately, how to integrate all parts of you, even the ones you were taught to hate. You'll learn that healing is not a destination. It's a relationship with yourself, with your pain, with your power. This is not a self-help book. It's a mirror. You will not be the same when you're done with this book, not because it gives you magic, but because it reminds you of what you already know, that your shadow is not the enemy. It's the part of you that kept you alive. It's the whisper beneath your reactions, the emotion behind your numbness, the reason you feel stuck, and the way out. And if you're willing to listen, it will tell you everything. So bring your journal, bring your heart, bring the parts of you you've been pretending don't exist. We're going in, not to destroy what's dark, but to finally understand it, not to fight your shadow, but to talk to her. And maybe for the first time in a long time, feel free. Chapter 1, what is shadow work and why it might save your life? Have you ever reacted so strongly to something minor that even you were confused? Maybe your partner was 5 minutes late and your chest tightened like they'd abandoned you, or someone criticized you at work, and instead of brushing it off, your entire self-worth crumbled. Or maybe you keep dating emotionally unavailable people, even though you swore you were done with fixer-upper love. And you ask yourself, why do I keep doing this? I thought I was over that. Welcome to your shadow, the part of you that doesn't forget, the part of you that remembers the wound even when your mind insists you're fine, the part of you that's not broken, just buried. What is the shadow? The term shadow comes from Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who believed that the personality is made up of both conscious and unconscious parts. The shadow is everything you unconsciously repress, deny, or disown. Think of it like this. When you were young, you learned what parts of you were acceptable. You were praised when you smiled, not when you cried. You were celebrated when you excelled, not when you set boundaries. So the rest, your anger, jealousy, pain, fear, neediness, even joy and creativity, got quietly exiled to the basement. Jung called this inner exile the shadow self, not because it's evil or dangerous, but because it lives in the dark. And anything that lives in the dark starts to control us from there. Shadow work, it's already happening. Most people think shadow work is some mystical, candlelit ritual. And yes, it can be spiritual and sacred. But really, shadow work is just the practice of becoming honest about what's happening beneath the surface. If you've ever caught yourself mid-spiral and thought, why did I overreact like that? That's shadow work. If you've ever noticed a pattern you can't seem to break, people-pleasing, emotional shutdown, self-sabotage, that's your shadow asking to be seen. Shadow work is the process of turning toward those unconscious patterns with curiosity instead of judgment. It's peeling back the mask and asking, what am I really afraid of? What am I protecting? Real talk, the science of suppression. Let's get a little nerdy for a second. Your brain, especially your amygdala and prefrontal cortex, is wired to protect you. When you experience something overwhelming, especially in childhood, your brain stores that experience in implicit memory, meaning you don't always remember what happened, but your body does. Over time, unprocessed emotions don't disappear. They just find other ways to surface, as anxiety or chronic overthinking, as perfectionism or procrastination, as people-pleasing, rage, numbness, or control, as health issues, addictive behaviors, or burnout. In psychology, this is called repression, the unconscious pushing away of distressing thoughts, feelings, or memories. It's a survival strategy, but eventually it becomes self-sabotage. According to research in affective neuroscience, emotions that are not expressed are often amplified internally. So that little pang of rejection you felt when your friend didn't text back, it doesn't stay little. It taps into every moment you felt unseen, every buried wound, every shadow. Why shadow work might actually save your life. Let's get blunt. People don't just randomly fall apart. They slowly unravel from years of pretending they're okay. You don't develop a fear of abandonment overnight. You don't become emotionally unavailable out of nowhere. You don't numb your feelings because you're weak. You do it because somewhere you learned that expressing your truth wasn't safe. Shadow work is what happens when you finally decide to stop abandoning yourself. It's what happens when you realize the goal isn't to be perfect, it's to be whole. And when you begin this process, you don't just feel better, you get free. Shadow work in everyday life, it's closer than you think. Let's say you're in traffic and someone cuts you off. You explode. Not just a wow, that was rude. We're talking full emotional detonation. That's not about traffic. That's a wound that says, I'm disrespected. I don't matter. People don't see me. Or maybe you're in a new relationship and things are going great, so you pull away, you start nitpicking, you convince yourself they're going to leave anyway, so why not beat them to it? That's not sabotage for fun. That's your shadow protecting you from intimacy because it equates closeness with danger. The things we call toxic traits are often just brilliant survival adaptations from a time we had fewer tools and no safety. Shadow work helps us honor the root so we can choose a different response. Why we resist it? Here's the part no one likes to admit. Most people would rather feel familiar pain than face the unknown. Your shadow may be destructive, but it's predictable, safe. You know how to operate in survival mode. You've mastered the art of suffering silently, of smiling with a bruised heart, of functioning with a fractured soul. But thriving, being seen, feeling joy, and letting it stay, that's scary. That's vulnerable. Shadow work asks you to step into that vulnerability, to stop running, to sit with what hurts without trying to fix it, to feel without fear, to ask your shadow, not, why are you ruining my life, but what are you trying to protect? A shadow story. Let me introduce you to Thandi. Thandi was the strong one, the reliable friend, the overachiever who never missed a deadline, never let anyone down. She also hadn't cried in 8 years. Not really. When her therapist asked her to describe her childhood, she shrugged. I had food. I had clothes. I'm fine. But her relationships told a different story. She attracted partners who couldn't show up emotionally. She worked until exhaustion. She panicked if someone tried to care for her. One day, she broke down over a spilled cup of coffee. Not because of the coffee, because her body finally said, enough. Through shadow work, Thandi discovered something huge. As a child, her emotions were ignored, so she stopped having them. Her shadow said, being vulnerable is dangerous. Being strong is the only way to survive. Now, Thandi still works hard, but she's learning to rest. She still loves deeply, but she sets boundaries. She still has moments of panic, but instead of spiraling, she breathes, listens, writes, and thanks her shadow for trying so hard to protect her. Let's get honest. So now it's your turn. Where do you find yourself overreacting or underreacting? Where do you feel empty, exhausted, or enraged for no clear reason? Where do you feel afraid, even when you're safe? That's your shadow talking. And this book will help you finally listen, not to scold or silence it, but to understand it. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper. You'll meet your shadow, the version of you who holds all the parts you've been taught to hide. You'll explore projection, triggers, and the mirror effect that shows up in your relationships, your judgments, and your daily reactions. Because before you can integrate your shadow, you have to see her clearly, and she's been waiting for you. Chapter 2, Meet Your Shadow, the you behind the mask. You probably think you're pretty self-aware. You know your favorite snack, your love language, your Myers-Briggs type. You've taken the online quizzes, read the therapy threads, maybe even said things like, I'm just a bit triggered right now. But here's the kicker. Your shadow doesn't care how self-aware you think you are. It's not operating from your conscious personality. It's running the unconscious show. The shadow doesn't show up as, hi, I'm your repressed childhood grief. It shows up as snapping at your partner over nothing, silently resenting a friend's success, feeling off around certain people but not knowing why, overreacting in arguments, underreacting to red flags. These aren't flaws. They're messages. Every emotional overreaction, every judgment, every inner cringe when someone pushes a button. It's not proof that something is wrong with you. It's proof that something within you is unseen. And when it's unseen, it stays in control. What is a trigger, really? Let's start with this misunderstood word. Trigger. A trigger is an emotional flashback. It's when something small in the present moment hits a nerve that was never healed from your past. You feel a disproportionate emotional response, not because you're dramatic, but because a younger version of you is suddenly in charge. Someone criticizes your idea. You don't just feel defensive. You feel like a 7-year-old who was told to shut up. Someone sets a boundary with you. You don't just feel uncomfortable. You feel rejected, like you're unlovable, unworthy, disposable. Triggers are time machines. They yank you back to the original wound your body never forgot. Your nervous system starts screaming, even if the adult you insists this isn't a big deal. But to your shadow, it is. The mirror effect. You spot it, you got it. Let's talk about projection. Projection is your shadow's favorite way to introduce itself. Instead of showing up directly, it plays dress up. It puts on someone else's face. In psychology, projection happens when we take qualities we've rejected in ourselves and project them onto others. You might judge someone for being loud when deep down, you wish you had the courage to take up space. Roll your eyes at someone for being emotional because you've learned to silence your own. Feel threatened by someone's confidence because it reminds you of the version of yourself you were told to dim. The people who trigger you are rarely the problem. They're the reflection, the mirror, the emotional flashlight showing you a part of yourself that hasn't been claimed yet. Why do I keep attracting toxic people? If you've ever asked this question, know this, it's not your fault, but it is your pattern. And patterns don't happen by accident. They happen by design. You attract people who activate your unhealed wounds because on some level, those dynamics feel familiar. They match the template your shadow wrote years ago. If you grew up feeling unseen, you may be drawn to people who ignore your needs, not because you like it, but because it feels normal. If you were shamed for expressing emotion, you may fall for people who label you too much, echoing the original rejection. If you had to earn love through overgiving, you may gravitate toward takers until your tank runs dry, and you call it love. Your shadow creates chemistry with what is known, not what is healthy. This isn't sabotage. It's a survival strategy. The shadow keeps recreating old pain, hoping this time it'll get resolved. But healing doesn't come from repeating the cycle. It comes from stepping out of it. The too emotional lie, you're not too much. You're just full of truths you've never been allowed to tell. Many of us were taught that emotions are inconvenient, especially the messy ones. Anger made you aggressive. Sadness made you dramatic. Sensitivity made you weak. So we learned to suppress, smile, shrink. And now we don't understand why our bodies explode with feeling when something small goes wrong. You're not unstable. You're overflowing. Every time your shadow screams through a meltdown, a panic attack, a shutdown, it's not a failure. It's a signal, a flare shot from your subconscious saying, please see me. Emotional overwhelm isn't a character flaw. It's what happens when pain has nowhere else to go. How to recognize your shadow in action. Here are some signs your shadow is talking, not your adult self. 1. You react, then regret. You say something cruel and later feel ashamed. You over-explain, over-apologize, or ghost, then wonder why. 2. You judge someone intensely. You feel a strong aversion to someone for being too confident, too sensitive, too clingy. Pause. Could it be projection? 3. You envy someone. You resent someone's success, beauty, freedom, or peace. That envy is your shadow pointing at something you've disowned. 4. You repeat painful patterns. You keep choosing emotionally unavailable people, sabotaging opportunities, or isolating yourself, even when you know better. 5. You feel blocked. You want to create, speak up, leave, change, but something paralyzes you. That resistance often lives in the shadow. Your shadow is never random. It's precise. It shows up exactly where your healing lives. A story, the girl who hated attention seekers. Meet Zanil. Zanil hated attention seekers. Couldn't stand them. Loud laughers, oversharers, the people who danced too freely at weddings, they made her skin crawl. She prided herself on being calm, controlled, private. She didn't overshare. She didn't ask for help. She didn't cry at work, not even when her father passed. But in therapy, something cracked open. She remembered being 6 years old, dancing in her grandmother's yard, twirling, singing, free, and being told by her aunt to stop showing off. That was the day her inner spotlight dimmed. Her shadow decided, to be loved, I must be small. The people Zanil hated weren't actually offensive. They were free. And that freedom triggered her shadow's grief. The grief of a girl who once felt safe being loud, but was punished for it. Now, when Zanil sees people take up space, she still flinches sometimes. But she's learning to pause and ask, is this judgment? Or is this envy in disguise? Reflection questions. Let's pause for some gentle self-inquiry. No pressure, just honesty. Who do I silently judge or resent? And what might they mirror back to me? When was the last time I felt too emotional? What was really underneath that feeling? What kind of people or behaviors trigger me? And what might those reactions be trying to teach me? Have I been taught to suppress certain emotions or traits? Who told me they were unacceptable? Your shadow doesn't need you to fix everything. It needs you to notice. In the next chapter, we'll explore how trauma gets stored in your body and why your nervous system sometimes sabotages you even when your mind wants to heal. Because understanding your shadow is one thing. Learning how your brain, body, and beliefs interact with it. That's where the real freedom begins. Chapter 3, the neuroscience of avoidance, shame, and emotional numbing. You didn't choose to shut down. You didn't wake up one morning and decide, today I'll bury my emotions, avoid confrontation, and stay numb to my own needs. No, it was never a decision. It was a response designed by your brain and body to keep you safe. And it worked for a while, until you couldn't feel joy anymore, until peace felt boring, until closeness made your skin itch, until your own emotions started to feel like strangers. This chapter is not here to blame you. It's here to explain you. Because when you understand how your nervous system works, you stop shaming your shutdowns and start healing them. Trauma isn't just what happened. It's what stays inside you. Let's begin with a truth the world often misunderstands. Trauma is not the event. It's the imprint. It's not just the abuse, neglect, betrayal, or loss. It's what your body had to do to survive it. It's the emotions you had to silence, the instincts you had to override, the truths you had to forget, just to keep going. Your brain, brilliant and loyal, recorded those moments. It noticed, when I speak up, I get punished. When I cry, no one comes. When I relax, bad things happen. When I trust, I get hurt. So your brain adjusted. Your nervous system adapted. Your shadow went underground. And over time, your body didn't just remember the pain. It memorized the response. Meet your nervous system, the guardian of your shadow. Your nervous system is your built-in security system. It's always scanning your environment, asking one simple question. Am I safe? If the answer is yes, you feel calm, open, connected. If the answer is no, even if it's subconscious, your body flips into protection mode. Here's how that looks. Fight. You lash out, defend, argue, or try to control. Anger becomes your armor. Flight. You become anxious, perfectionistic, overproductive. You run, physically or mentally, from discomfort. Freeze. You shut down. Go numb. Disconnect from your body. You zone out or dissociate. Fawn. You people please. You appease. You abandon your own needs to stay safe or keep the peace. These responses are not personality flaws. They're protective strategies. They're the nervous system saying, last time this happened, we almost didn't survive. Let's do something, anything, to stay safe. Why you numb your feelings, even the good ones. Numbing isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like scrolling endlessly, binge-watching shows you don't even enjoy, overeating, undereating, overthinking, isolating, or keeping so busy you never have to feel. But here's the catch. When you numb pain, you also numb pleasure. You can't selectively shut off emotion. So while your brain protects you from feeling grief, shame, or anger, it also blocks joy, excitement, love, and peace. Many people in a constant state of emotional dysregulation feel one of two things: too much, overwhelmed, anxious, reactive, or nothing at all, numb, detached, flat. Both are signs that the nervous system is dysregulated. Both are signs your shadow is holding unprocessed pain. Shame, the shadow's favorite weapon. Let's talk about shame, the most insidious, silent emotion of all. Guilt says, I did something bad. Shame says, I am bad. When you experience trauma or rejection as a child, your brain would rather believe you are the problem than believe the people caring for you were incapable of meeting your needs. Because if you're the problem, you can fix it. You can try harder, be quieter, be better. Shame becomes a survival strategy. But over time, shame calcifies. It becomes, I'm too much. I'm not enough. I don't deserve love. I can't trust anyone. I'll never change. These beliefs don't just sit in your mind. They live in your nervous system. They become the silent architecture of your daily decisions. Your brain on trauma, a gentle science lesson. When you experience overwhelming stress, your brain activates the amygdala, the part responsible for detecting danger. It's like a smoke alarm for emotional threats. But here's the problem. Trauma wires the amygdala to be hypersensitive. It starts reacting not just to real danger, but to anything that feels familiar to the original wound. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational part of your brain, gets overridden. Your brain says, forget logic, just survive. This is why you can know something logically. My partner isn't my dad. This job isn't life or death. And still react like you're in danger. Shadow work helps you build a bridge between your logical mind and your emotional brain. It teaches you to pause, to notice, to breathe, to choose a new response, becoming aware of suppressed patterns. Awareness is the first step to integration. Not action, not fixing, just noticing. Here's how you can begin spotting emotional suppression in your daily life. Notice when you go numb. Is it during conflict, intimacy, rest, joy? Numbness is not emptiness. It's protection. Track your patterns. Do you overfunction? Do you emotionally check out? Do you fawn and then resent it later? Write it down. Patterns reveal pain. Get curious about overreactions. That rage, that panic, that shutdown, it's not crazy. It's an echo. Ask yourself, what does this remind me of? Name your state. Instead of saying, I'm fine, try, I feel frozen right now. My body doesn't feel safe. This names the pattern and invites self-compassion. Your goal isn't to eliminate these responses. It's to create space between the trigger and the reaction, so your shadow doesn't hijack the wheel every time. A story, The Woman Who Couldn't Rest. Meet Ayanda. Ayanda couldn't sit still. Her planner was always full. She worked through lunch, exercised obsessively, organized the house at midnight, and still felt lazy if she paused. One day, her body gave up before she did. Chronic fatigue, insomnia, and panic attacks became her norm. When she finally went to therapy, she said, I don't know how to be without doing. Her therapist asked one question. When did rest stop feeling safe? Ayanda burst into tears. She remembered being 10, coming home with a stomach bug. Her mother told her, get over it. We don't have time to be weak. That day, her nervous system linked rest with rejection. Her freeze response didn't look like collapsing. It looked like constant doing. Hyperindependence, busyness, control. Through shadow work and nervous system healing, Ayanda slowly began to associate stillness with safety. She started small, sitting for 5 minutes without a task, then 10. Then she started journaling, breathing, feeling. It wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. And from there, it became healing. Reflection prompts. When do I feel the urge to shut down emotionally? What am I protecting? Which of the 4 responses, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, do I notice most often? What emotions have I learned to suppress? Who taught me they were unsafe? Do I numb with busyness, scrolling, food, or isolation? What might be underneath that? You don't need to fix anything today. Just notice and tell your nervous system, gently, you're safe now. We don't have to run anymore. In the next chapter, we'll shift from the brain to the breath, exploring how mindfulness gives you the tools to sit with what hurts without collapsing under it. Because shadow work isn't about diving into the pain recklessly. It's about learning how to stay present with your emotions so you can meet them with love, not fear. Chapter 4, Mindfulness, the art of sitting with what hurts. Most of us don't know how to feel our feelings. We know how to talk about them. We know how to analyze them. We even know how to apologize for them. But to actually sit in the fire of sadness, rage, shame, or grief without shutting down or trying to escape, that's an art, a practice, a form of emotional bravery we were never taught, especially if we were raised to believe that being strong meant being numb. So what do we do instead? We run. We distract ourselves with work, food, noise, people, scrolling, anything to avoid what's rising inside. And yet, every feeling you ignore doesn't disappear. It waits. It stores itself in your body. It becomes tension, illness, disconnection. That's where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is not about clearing your mind or becoming some peaceful Zen master floating above pain. It's about learning how to stay with the discomfort, with the mess, with the feeling you've spent years trying to outrun, and greet it like an old friend. What mindfulness actually is. Mindfulness simply means paying attention on purpose to the present moment, without judgment. That's it. It's noticing your breath without trying to change it. It's sitting with your sadness without telling it to go away. It's hearing your inner critic and gently responding, I see you. I know you're trying to protect me. You don't need candles, incense, or perfect posture. You just need a willingness to stop running. Why it's so hard to feel? Your nervous system was wired for survival, not for vulnerability. If feeling an emotion once put you in danger, like crying got you punished or expressing anger got you ignored, your brain learned to shut it down. Fast. The more you avoided those emotions, the more they felt dangerous. So now, even as an adult, sadness can feel like drowning. Anger feels like a threat. Stillness feels unbearable. Joy feels suspicious. Mindfulness helps you create space between the emotion and the reaction. It lets your shadow speak without letting it hijack your entire system. It's not about feeling better. It's about getting better at feeling. The power of naming it. One of the gentlest, most effective tools in mindfulness is affect labeling, the act of naming what you're feeling as it arises. Studies in affective neuroscience show that labeling an emotion reduces amygdala activation, the fear center in the brain, and increases activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for regulation and decision-making. In plain terms, saying, I feel anxious, helps your brain calm down more than trying to pretend everything is fine. So instead of suppressing your emotions or analyzing them to death, try simply noticing and naming. I feel overwhelmed right now. I feel angry, and I don't know why. I feel hurt, and part of me wants to run. No judgment, just honesty. How to sit with your emotions without drowning. Here's where we get practical. Shadow work doesn't mean swimming in the deep end without a life vest. It means learning how to stay grounded while you feel. Let's break down 3 essential tools for emotional safety. 1, body scan. Your body holds everything your mind forgets. A body scan helps you bring gentle attention to different areas of the body, which both grounds you in the present and helps you locate stuck energy or emotion. Try this. Sit or lie down in a quiet place. Close your eyes. Take 3 slow, deep breaths. Bring your attention to your feet. Notice any sensation. No need to change anything. Just feel. Move your attention up. Calves, thighs, stomach, chest, shoulders, arms, hands, neck, jaw, face. Pause on any area that feels tense or numb. Ask it softly, what are you holding for me? Breathe into that space. This practice brings awareness to emotions stored in the body, often before you even know what you're feeling mentally. 2, breath work. Your breath is your anchor. It's the one tool you always carry. When your shadow is triggered, your breathing becomes shallow, fast, or even pauses entirely. A sign your body thinks it's under threat. Conscious breathing reminds your nervous system, we're safe now. We can soften. Try this simple technique, box breathing. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 4 seconds. Repeat 5 times. It's simple but powerful. Box breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's rest and digest mode, helping you feel calm enough to process emotions rather than react from them. 3. Grounding. When you feel overwhelmed, grounding pulls you out of your head and back into your body. Try the 5-4-3-2-1 method. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. This technique is especially useful during emotional flashbacks or panic. It roots you in now, which is the only place healing ever happens. Mindfulness is a form of reparenting. Every time you choose to sit with a difficult emotion instead of pushing it away, you're reparenting the parts of you that were never given emotional safety. You're saying, it's okay to feel this. You're not too much. You're safe now. This is how your shadow begins to trust you, not through force, not through control, but through presence. A story, the girl who was always fine. Namsa was always fine. Fine when she was fired. Fine when her engagement ended. Fine when her father died. No tears. No outbursts. Just functionality. Until one day at a yoga class, the teacher asked them to lie on the floor and breathe. That was it. But something inside her cracked. She sobbed for the first time in years, not because of yoga, but because her body finally had permission to feel. Later, in therapy, she admitted, I don't know how to feel without falling apart. That fear kept her in emotional lockdown for years. With time and practice, Namsa began integrating mindfulness, body scans in the morning, gentle breathing when anxiety crept in, naming her feelings aloud without rushing to fix them. She didn't fall apart. She came home to herself. Mindfulness for shadow integration. Mindfulness is not separate from shadow work. It's the foundation of it. You cannot integrate what you cannot sit with. You can't love your shadow if you're afraid of what it feels like. You can't heal if your first instinct is always escape. You can't grow if you shame yourself every time you're overwhelmed. Mindfulness teaches you to pause, to feel, to witness without judgment. And in that witnessing, the magic begins. Gentle reflection. What emotions do I habitually avoid or numb? When I feel overwhelmed, what's my first instinct? To fix, to run, to shut down. How can I bring softness into my emotional experience today, even for 5 minutes? Healing doesn't happen in huge leaps. It happens in tiny, consistent moments of choosing to stay. In the next chapter, we'll explore emotional triggers as roadmaps, not enemies. You'll learn how to decode what sets you off and how every trigger holds a story, a wound, and an invitation to heal. Because once you've learned how to sit with your pain, you're ready to understand it. Chapter 5, The Mirror Test, How to Decode Your Triggers. Have you ever noticed how some small things set you off, a tone of voice, a glance, or even a certain phrase, and you react as if your life depends on it? Maybe someone interrupts you and suddenly your chest tightens or your mind spirals into anger, or you hear criticism and feel instantly ashamed, even if it's mild or constructive. Here's the truth. Every emotional reaction is a roadmap to your past. Your triggers are not random. They are echoes of old wounds hiding in your shadow, waiting to be understood. Think of your triggers like an ancient GPS directing you back to the moments when you first learned pain, rejection, or fear. Why you're triggered, the shadow's echo. Triggers feel urgent because they tap into feelings that were too big, too dangerous, or too confusing to process when they first happened. Your brain is wired to protect you. So it stores these memories in the limbic system, the emotional brain, rather than the logical cortex. That means your reactions often happen before your conscious mind even knows what's going on. This is why you can feel rage over a simple comment or break into tears after a mild disagreement. Your shadow is waving a red flag, saying, "This is familiar territory. You've been here before." The tricky part is that the original wound might have happened decades ago, but it still lives in your nervous system, quietly sabotaging your present peace. The mirror effect, seeing your shadow in others. Here's where it gets interesting. Often, the people who trigger us are mirrors reflecting parts of ourselves we don't want to see, the parts we've judged, hidden, or denied. That coworker who seems cold and dismissive, maybe they remind you of a critical parent you never got validation from. The friend who constantly interrupts, perhaps they echo how you felt invisible as a child. Your shadow uses these mirrors to get your attention. When you feel triggered, it's less about the other person and more about what's alive inside you. From "why am I like this?" to "I know exactly why." The journey to emotional freedom begins with curiosity, not judgment. Instead of beating yourself up for overreacting, try to see your triggers as clues, not flaws. Ask yourself, what exactly did I feel in that moment? What memories or images come up when I think about this reaction? Where else in my life have I felt this way? Answering these questions is like peeling an onion. It might sting at first, but the deeper you go, the closer you get to the core of healing. Journaling prompts, your personal mirror test. Writing down your thoughts can unlock hidden layers of your shadow. Try these prompts the next time you notice a strong emotional reaction. 1. Describe the situation that triggered you in as much detail as possible. Who was there? What was said or done? How did you feel physically? 2. What past experience does this reaction remind you of? Try to connect it to an earlier memory, even if it feels vague. 3. What unmet need or fear is showing up here? Were you seeking safety, love, respect, or something else? 4. How might this reaction be protecting you? What is your shadow trying to keep safe by reacting this way? 5. If this feeling could talk, what would it want you to know? Give your emotional reaction a voice and listen carefully. 6. What would it feel like to respond differently next time? Imagine a healthier reaction and how you might get there. Journaling doesn't have to be perfect or logical. The goal is to have an honest conversation with your shadow, one that's full of compassion and curiosity. The science behind emotional triggers. Neuroscience shows us that the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, fires off signals to prepare the body to fight, flee, freeze, or fawn whenever it senses danger. But sometimes this alarm is set off by old emotional memories rather than present reality. Imagine your brain like a well-meaning but overprotective friend who sounds the alarm every time a faint shadow passes by, just because it looks like the scary monster from childhood. The amygdala doesn't check the facts. It reacts fast to keep you safe. Understanding this biology can help you cut yourself some slack. Your triggers are not personal failures. They're your brain's way of trying to keep you alive based on past experiences. Healing emotional wounds, the power of awareness and choice. Decoding your triggers is the first step. The next is learning to respond rather than react. Here's the difference. Reaction is automatic, often fueled by unconscious pain. Response is conscious, rooted in awareness and choice. When you notice a trigger, try these gentle tools. Pause and breathe. Slow, deep breaths help calm the amygdala and activate your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that thinks and reasons. Name the feeling, label your emotion, "I'm feeling hurt," or "I'm angry." This simple act shifts your brain from survival mode into reflective mode. Self-soothing. Place a hand on your heart, say a kind phrase to yourself, or imagine a safe space. Reflect later. Use journaling or therapy to explore the root of the trigger when you're calm. Over time, these practices create new neural pathways, rewiring your brain to choose peace instead of pain. A real-life story, how decoding triggers changed me. Let me share a personal story. For years, I would get intensely defensive when someone criticized my work, even if it was constructive feedback. I felt like I was back in school, the scared kid being judged and dismissed. It took journaling and reflection to realize the real trigger was fear of abandonment. My younger self had learned, if I'm not perfect, I won't be loved. Every critique felt like a threat to my belonging. Once I understood this, I started practicing breathing and naming the fear in the moment. I also reminded myself that one person's feedback didn't define my worth. Gradually, the defense softened, and I could hear criticism without feeling crushed. This is the power of the mirror test. Once you see your shadow clearly, its grip loosens. Your turn. Begin your mirror test today. Triggers are uncomfortable but valuable teachers. When you lean in, they reveal the parts of your story that need kindness and healing. Try this. The next time you feel triggered, pause, take a deep breath, and say silently, "This is my shadow showing up." Use one of the journaling prompts to explore the why behind your reaction. Remember, healing is a process, not a sprint. Each moment of awareness is a step toward freedom. Key takeaways. Triggers are not random. They are echoes of past wounds stored in your nervous system. The people who trigger you often mirror parts of your shadow you've hidden. Journaling can help uncover the root wounds behind triggers and open the door to healing. Neuroscience explains why your brain reacts before your mind understands, making self-compassion essential. Mindful pause and naming emotions allow you to respond with choice instead of reacting on autopilot. Decoding your triggers gradually rewires your brain for emotional freedom. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into connecting with your inner child, that vulnerable part of you that's often driving these triggers beneath the surface. For now, take a moment to honor yourself for looking honestly at your shadow. The path to emotional freedom begins with brave, curious reflection, and you're already walking it. Chapter 6, Your Inner Child is Calling. Will you answer? If you've ever found yourself inexplicably feeling needy, anxious, or wildly overreacting to situations that shouldn't rock your world, there's a little voice inside you that's trying to get your attention. That voice belongs to your inner child, the part of you that still carries childhood wounds, unmet needs, and forgotten dreams. Your inner child is not some mystical woo-woo concept. It's a real, tangible part of your psyche, the emotional core that formed in those early years, long before you learned how to put on a grown-up face. And whether you realize it or not, this child is often the driver behind your adult behaviors, especially the ones that sabotage your peace. Signs your inner child is running your adult life. Sometimes the inner child's presence feels obvious. Other times, it hides behind more subtle signs. Here are some common clues that your inner child is running the show. You feel excessively needy or crave approval. That nagging sense of, am I enough? Often echoes childhood moments when love felt conditional or distant. You sabotage relationships or opportunities. Maybe you push people away before they can leave or fail at things you actually want, as if protecting yourself from disappointment. You react with extreme emotions to small triggers. Tears, anger, or panic might erupt faster than logic can keep up. Classic signs of an unmet childhood need begging for attention. You struggle with boundaries. Either you build walls so high that no one can get close, or you let people walk all over you because you don't feel worthy of respect. You seek distraction or escape. Overreading, binge watching, or scrolling endlessly can be ways to soothe that lonely child inside. If you caught yourself nodding along to any of these, you're in good company. The key is to learn how to listen and respond differently, to step into the role of a loving adult who can finally give that child what they've been missing. How unmet childhood needs shape adult sabotage. Here's the truth no one tells you. When your childhood needs went unmet, whether it was safety, attention, validation, or affection, your brain and nervous system developed coping mechanisms to survive. Those strategies worked then, but often backfire in adult life. For example, if as a child you felt invisible or unheard, you might now shout to be seen or withdraw entirely, convinced that either extreme will protect you from rejection. If love felt conditional, you might cling tightly or sabotage relationships to avoid the pain of abandonment. This is why the voice in your head says things like, "I'm not good enough. If I don't control this, I'll be hurt. I must hide my true feelings to be safe." Your inner child learned these beliefs to survive, but now they keep you stuck, reparenting yourself. The loving conversation you've been waiting for. The good news? You can rewire this story. You can become the parent you needed but didn't have. This process, often called reparenting, means meeting your inner child with kindness, understanding, and the safety they lacked. Think of it like this. Your inner child is standing outside in the rain, shivering and scared. Your job as the adult is to open the door, invite them in, and say, "I've got you. You're safe now." Step-by-step script for reconnecting with your inner child. Here's a gentle script to start this healing conversation. You can do this in your journal, out loud, or in meditation. The goal is to open the lines of communication with compassion and curiosity. Step 1, find a quiet space and breathe. Sit comfortably and take a few deep breaths. Imagine yourself becoming calm and grounded. Step 2, visualize your inner child. Picture yourself as a young child. How old are they? What do they look like? What expression do they wear? Notice their posture and energy. Step 3, greet your inner child warmly. Say something like, "Hi there, I see you. I know you've been carrying a lot. I'm here to listen. I want to understand what you need." Step 4, ask open-hearted questions. Try asking your inner child, "What are you feeling right now? What scares you? What do you wish I knew about you? What do you need from me?" Listen quietly. You might get words, images, sensations, or even silence. That's okay. Step 5, offer comfort and reassurance. Tell your inner child, "You are safe. You are loved exactly as you are. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. I'm here for you." You can imagine hugging your child, wrapping them in a warm blanket, or holding their hand. Step 6, promise to check in regularly. Say, "I will come back to you. I will take care of you." Reparenting is not a one-time fix. It's a lifelong friendship. Journaling prompt. Talk to your inner child today. Try writing a letter to your younger self. Imagine you're the loving parent they never had. What would you say? What stories would you share? How would you promise to protect and care for them moving forward? Why you feel needy and how to heal that. That gnawing feeling of neediness often comes from the inner child's longing for connection and validation. When you grew up in an environment where affection or attention was inconsistent or conditional, your brain learned that you had to chase love or approval to survive emotionally. This creates a pattern where you might constantly seek reassurance from others, feel empty or anxious when alone, overextend yourself to prove your worth. Healing this starts by recognizing the root cause, that unmet need, and choosing to meet it yourself. Self-validation becomes a radical act of rebellion against old programming. You can say things like, I am enough just as I am. I am worthy of love and kindness. I don't have to earn my place in this world. Daily reminders like this build a new emotional foundation that your inner child can finally rest on. A story from the heart. When I met my inner child, I remember the first time I sat quietly and invited my inner child to speak. It felt awkward, like talking to a stranger at a party. But slowly, memories bubbled up, the times I felt small, unseen, or scared. One moment stood out. I was about 6, sitting alone in the schoolyard while other kids played. I felt lonely and invisible, but I pushed the feeling away because no one was watching. When I acknowledged that lonely child, it was like unlocking a door I'd slammed shut for years. I told her, I see you. You're not alone anymore. I promised to be her safe place. That moment didn't erase the past, but it started a beautiful journey of healing. Now, when I feel needy or afraid, I know it's her asking for care, and I'm ready to answer. Healing is a conversation, not a lecture. Remember, reparenting your inner child is about connection, not perfection. It's not about fixing or judging, but about being present and compassionate. Your inner child doesn't need you to be flawless. They just need you to be there. Your action steps for today. 1. Find 5 minutes for a quiet check-in with your inner child. Use the script above if it helps. 2. Write a letter to your younger self filled with love and reassurance. 3. Notice moments when you feel needy or reactive and ask, what does my inner child need right now? 4. Practice a daily affirmation that reminds you of your worth and safety. Key takeaways. Your inner child is a real, emotional part of you carrying childhood wounds and unmet needs. Unmet childhood needs often drive adult patterns of sabotage, neediness, and emotional reactivity. Reparenting yourself means offering the love and safety you missed as a child. A simple visualization and compassionate conversation can begin healing old wounds. Healing your inner child is a lifelong practice of kindness, patience, and self-awareness. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to lovingly embrace your ugly parts, those shame, guilt, and fear pieces your shadow has hidden away, and turn them into sources of strength. But for now, listen closely. Your inner child is calling. Will you answer? Chapter 7, Loving the Ugly Parts. How to reclaim shame, guilt, and fear. If someone told you to embrace your shame, guilt, and fear, you might want to run in the opposite direction. After all, these emotions feel heavy, uncomfortable, and downright ugly. We grow up learning that these feelings are bad, something to be hidden, fixed, or erased. But what if I told you that your shadow is actually full of rejected beauty? Yes, the parts of yourself you've been taught to hate, the ugly feelings you bury deep, are vital pieces of your wholeness. They are messengers carrying important truths, guides pointing you toward healing, and hidden strengths waiting to be reclaimed. Why your shadow holds rejected beauty. The shadow is like the attic of your psyche, stuffed with all the things you weren't allowed to show the world. Anger, jealousy, vulnerability, mistakes, and yes, shame and fear. These parts are rejected, not because they're inherently bad, but because society, family, or even your own inner critic told you they were unacceptable. Shame whispers, I am broken. Guilt nags, I did something wrong. Fear screams, danger is everywhere. But underneath these harsh voices lies a wounded self begging for kindness. Your shadows, ugly parts are often misunderstood gifts. For example, a shame can reveal your deepest values and boundaries. It tells you where you felt unseen or unworthy, clues to what needs healing. Guilt can guide you back to your integrity when you've acted out of alignment with your true self. Fear is your brain's early warning system designed to protect you, even if sometimes it's overly cautious. By rejecting these feelings, you've also rejected important information about your needs, values, and experiences. How to gently reclaim the parts you were taught to hate. Reclaiming the shadow is less about forcing yourself to like these parts and more about getting curious without judgment. Imagine meeting a scared animal that's been cornered for years. You wouldn't chase it or yell, right? You'd move slowly, speak softly, and offer a hand of peace. Here's how to approach your shadows. Ugly parts with that same gentle compassion. 1. Acknowledge without shame. When feelings of shame, guilt, or fear arise, try saying, I see you, you're here, and that's okay. This simple acceptance breaks the cycle of self-hatred. 2. Name what you're feeling. Labeling your emotions. I am feeling ashamed activates your brain's reflective center, helping you observe without drowning. 3. Explore the story behind the feeling. Ask yourself, what event or belief might be fueling this shame or fear? Often, the root is an old wound, not current reality. 4. Offer kindness and support. Imagine comforting your wounded self as you would a dear friend, with warmth, patience, and reassurance. Over time, this gentle reclamation creates space for integration, where the ugly parts become accepted parts. Exercises for integrating the ugly without judgment. To help you begin this process, here are 3 shadow integration exercises you can try today. 1. The compassionate witness. Find a quiet space and sit comfortably. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. Bring to mind a recent moment when you felt shame, guilt, or fear. Watch the feeling as if you were a compassionate witness. No judgment, no trying to fix it, just observe. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What does it need? Imagine wrapping this feeling in a warm, golden light of compassion. Stay with this image for a few minutes, then slowly open your eyes. This exercise helps you move from avoidance to acceptance by simply witnessing your emotions. 2. Dialogue with your ugly parts. Write a letter to your shame, guilt, or fear as if it were a person. Ask questions like, why are you here? What do you want me to know? How can I help you? Write the responses as honestly as you can, letting your intuition guide you. End by thanking these parts for their presence and promising to care for them better. This creates a healing conversation between your conscious self and shadow, fostering integration. 3. Mirror affirmations for self-acceptance. Stand in front of a mirror and look into your own eyes. Say out loud, or silently if that feels too intense, I accept all parts of myself, even the ones I've been taught to hate. I am worthy of love and kindness, exactly as I am. My shame, guilt, and fear are valid, but they do not define me. Repeat these affirmations daily to retrain your inner critic. It may feel awkward or uncomfortable at first. That's normal. The mirror is a powerful tool for reclaiming self-love. Why you keep hating yourself and how to stop. One of the most painful shadow patterns is self-hatred. It's like carrying around an internal bully who never cuts you any slack. But the root of this harshness often lies in childhood messages or cultural beliefs that told you you were not enough. When you hate parts of yourself, you unintentionally deepen the wound and strengthen your shadow's hold. The good news is you can choose to stop. Stopping self-hatred requires recognizing the voice of the inner critic. When it speaks, pause and ask, is this true? Is this kind or helpful? Replacing criticism with curiosity. Instead of, I'm so stupid, try, what caused me to feel this way? Practicing radical self-acceptance. Loving yourself doesn't mean perfection. It means embracing your full humanity, including flaws and fears. Remember, self-love isn't about ignoring your mistakes or pain. It's about holding all of it with gentle hands. A story of transformation from self-hate to self-compassion. I used to despise my own fear. Whenever I felt scared, I saw myself as weak or cowardly. This made me push away vulnerable feelings, which only made fear louder and more stubborn. One day, during a meditation, I imagined my fear as a trembling child hiding behind a curtain. Instead of shaming it, I offered my hand. "It's okay," I whispered. "I'm here." That moment shifted everything. Fear softened from an enemy into a messenger. I began to listen instead of fight, and slowly my relationship with myself changed from war to friendship. Your turn. Begin loving your ugly parts today. The journey to shadow integration is a brave act of self-love. It means welcoming what feels uncomfortable and finding the beauty in your imperfections. Try this simple practice now. When you notice shame, guilt, or fear arise today, pause. Take a deep breath and say silently, "I see you and I'm here." Use one of the exercises above to meet that feeling with curiosity and kindness. Every small step of acceptance chips away at the walls of self-hatred and opens the door to freedom. Key takeaways. Shame, guilt, and fear are not your enemies. They are parts of your shadow holding important messages and rejected beauty. Reclaiming these ugly parts starts with gentle curiosity and compassion, not judgment. Exercises like compassionate witnessing, dialogue, and mirror affirmations foster integration and self-acceptance. Self-hatred often stems from old wounds and cultural messages, but can be healed through radical kindness. Loving your shadow is essential to living a whole, free, and authentic life. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to talk to your shadow, literally, with journaling, mirror work, and other creative techniques that strengthen emotional self-trust. For now, remember this: the parts of you you've been taught to hide are also the parts longing most to be loved. Chapter 8, How to Talk to Your Shadow. Yes, literally. Talking to your shadow might sound like something out of a fantasy novel or maybe a late-night conversation with your reflection. But the truth is, dialoguing with your shadow is one of the most powerful, transformative tools in shadow work. It helps you build emotional self-trust, heal old wounds, and rewrite the story your unconscious has been telling you. Your shadow isn't some separate spooky entity. It's the hidden part of your psyche, the feelings, thoughts, and beliefs you've pushed away or denied. And just like any part of yourself, it wants to be seen, heard, and understood. Talking to your shadow gives it a voice. And by giving voice to what's silent, you open the door to healing. Why talking to your shadow changes your nervous system? When you react emotionally, your nervous system is often hijacked by old patterns, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, that keep you stuck in survival mode. But when you intentionally dialogue with your shadow, you engage your prefrontal cortex, the brain's thoughtful reasoning center. This conscious conversation helps downshift the amygdala's alarm bells and activates a calm, reflective state. Over time, these inner conversations can literally rewire your nervous system to respond with curiosity and compassion instead of fear and judgment. Creative techniques to dialogue with your shadow. Here are some of the most effective and accessible ways to start talking to your shadow, even if you've never tried before. 1. Shadow work journaling. This is the classic tool of shadow dialogue. Journaling lets you create a safe space to explore thoughts and feelings without interruption or judgment. How to start? Set a timer for 10, 15 minutes and write freely about whatever your shadow is bringing up. Don't censor yourself. Try the Dear Shadow format. Begin your writing with a letter to your shadow, like, Dear Shadow, I see you hiding behind my anger. Ask your shadow questions and write down its responses as if it were a separate voice inside you. Example questions. What do you want me to know? Why do you show up when you do? What are you protecting me from? How can I support you better? Journaling becomes a conversation where your shadow moves from a silent saboteur to an invited guest. 2. Mirror work. Mirror work is a beautiful, sometimes challenging way to face yourself and your shadow head on. It forces you to make eye contact with the parts you often avoid. How to practice mirror dialogue. Stand or sit in front of a mirror and look directly into your eyes. Take a few deep breaths to ground yourself. Speak out loud to your shadow as if it's a person standing beside you. For example, I see you, the part of me that feels unworthy. Invite your shadow to speak back. You might respond out loud or internally with whatever thoughts or feelings arise. End with affirmations like, thank you for trying to protect me. I am learning to listen. Mirror work can feel vulnerable at first, but it's incredibly empowering to claim all parts of yourself in this way. 3. Visualization and guided imagery. If you prefer a quieter, inward approach, guided visualization lets you imagine a dialogue with your shadow in a safe mental space. Try this. Close your eyes and take deep breaths. Picture a place where you feel safe, a garden, a cozy room, or a beach. Invite your shadow to appear. What does it look like? How does it feel? Ask your shadow what it wants to say and listen with openness. Imagine offering your shadow a gift, kindness, understanding, or protection. This method helps build empathy and trust with your shadow in a gentle, nonverbal way, a daily practice to strengthen emotional self-trust. Building a relationship with your shadow isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice. The more you talk to your shadow, the more it shifts from being a scary other into a wise, albeit wounded, ally. Here's a simple daily ritual you can try. 1. Morning check-in. Before you start your day, take 5 minutes to silently ask your shadow what it needs or feels. You can journal or just listen quietly. 2. During triggers. When you feel emotionally hijacked, pause and internally say, I see you, shadow. What are you trying to tell me right now? 3. Evening reflection. Write a short note about any shadow emotions that came up during the day. How did you respond? What did you learn? Over time, these steps cultivate emotional self-trust, the ability to meet yourself with curiosity, kindness, and patience no matter what arises. Why it's okay if your shadow feels uncomfortable at first. Talking to your shadow can be awkward, scary, or confusing at times. You might resist or feel like you're making it up. That's perfectly normal. Remember, this is a relationship-building process, not an instant fix. Your shadow has likely been silenced for years, maybe decades. It will take time for it to trust you enough to open up. Be patient and gentle with yourself. Every attempt, even the uncomfortable ones, is progress. Example dialogue, a sample shadow conversation. To give you a feel for how this works, here's a sample journaling dialogue between someone and their shadow. You, dear shadow, I notice you show up as anger when I'm criticized. Why do you do that? Shadow, I'm scared you'll be rejected or abandoned if you appear weak. You, that makes sense. You're protecting me from pain. Shadow, yes, but it's exhausting. I want you to know it's safe to feel vulnerable. You, I hear you. I will try to be kinder to both of us. Thank you for keeping me safe all these years. How talking to your shadow transforms emotional healing. When you give your shadow a voice, you interrupt automatic patterns of avoidance and repression. You bring unconscious material into conscious awareness, the first step toward true integration. This dialogue helps your nervous system recalibrate from survival mode into a state of safety and presence. You learn to tolerate difficult emotions without becoming overwhelmed. You build emotional self-trust, the foundation for lasting healing. Reflective journal prompts to start your shadow conversations. What part of myself am I most afraid to see? When did I first notice this part showing up? What story have I been telling myself about this shadow? How would my relationship with this part change if I offered it kindness? What would my shadow say to me if it had a voice? Answer these honestly and without judgment. Let your shadow surprise you. Your invitation, start talking today. Talking to your shadow is one of the bravest gifts you can give yourself. It's a practice that asks you to lean into discomfort, to meet fear with curiosity, and to replace judgment with compassion. You don't have to do it perfectly or have all the answers. Just start the conversation with pen, mirror, or imagination, and watch how your relationship with yourself shifts. Remember, your shadow is not your enemy. It's a wounded friend waiting to be heard. Chapter 9, When the Shadow Sabotages Everything and How to Stop. If you've ever found yourself ghosting a friend, lashing out at a loved one, overcommitting until you're running on empty, people-pleasing to the point of exhaustion, or simply shutting down emotionally, congratulations, you're not alone. These patterns are classic ways the shadow sabotages us. It's as if there's a little gremlin inside, messing things up just when everything starts to go well. But here's the kicker. Self-sabotage isn't about you being broken or lazy. It's your shadow's way of trying to protect you from pain. Even if the method is wildly ineffective, understanding why you sabotage yourself is the first step to breaking free. Because as long as your shadow runs the show behind the scenes, you might keep wondering, why do I ruin good things? The answer is almost always hiding in your unconscious beliefs and unmet needs. Why you ghost, lash out, overcommit, people please, or shut down. Each self-sabotaging behavior is a symptom, a coping mechanism shaped by past wounds. Here's a quick breakdown of some common patterns and their shadow roots. Ghosting. Disappearing or withdrawing suddenly can be a defense against rejection or vulnerability. Your shadow whispers, if I leave first, I won't get hurt. Lashing out. Explosive anger often masks deeper feelings of fear or shame. The shadow uses rage to create distance and avoid feeling vulnerable. Overcommitting. Saying yes to everything can be a way to earn love or avoid conflict, rooted in a childhood belief, I have to prove my worth. People-pleasing. Prioritizing others' needs over your own stems from fears of abandonment or not being enough. The shadow says, if I make them happy, they won't leave. Shutting down, emotional numbness or silence can be the ultimate protection. A freeze response when pain feels unbearable. When these patterns repeat, they reinforce the shadow story. I'm not safe, I'm not lovable, or I'm not enough. It's a vicious cycle, but one you can interrupt. Real examples, stories of sabotage and shadow beliefs. Let me share a few stories I've heard. Maybe you'll recognize yourself in them. Case 1, Anna, the overcommitter. Anna loved her job, but found herself overwhelmed with extra projects, volunteering for committees, and helping colleagues, all at the expense of her mental health. When asked why, she said, if I don't do it, no one else will, and I'll be seen as useless. Her shadow believed her worth depended on proving usefulness. When Anna learned to set boundaries and say no, she slowly reclaimed her energy and joy. Case 2, Marcus the ghoster. Marcus often disappeared from relationships when things got serious. He told friends, I just can't handle the pressure. Deep down, his shadow was terrified of being abandoned or rejected. So he ghosted to protect himself before being hurt. Through therapy, Marcus recognized his fear and practiced honest communication, building safer connections. Case 3. Sophie, the people pleaser. Sophie always said yes, even when it drained her. I just want people to like me, she admitted. Her shadow believed love was conditional, earned by pleasing others. When Sophie started affirming her worth independently and practicing self-care, she felt freer and more authentic. Tools for creating new, healthier patterns. Awareness is the doorway, but change requires action. Here are tools you can use to break toxic patterns and work with your shadow instead of against it. 1. Identify your sabotage triggers. Start by noticing the moments you self-sabotage. Ask, what emotion am I feeling right now? Fear? Shame? Anxiety? What thought or belief is driving this behavior? If I don't do this, I'm worthless. What need is unmet? Safety? Acceptance? Control? Understanding your trigger story helps you catch sabotage before it takes over. 2. Practice radical self-compassion. When sabotage hits, resist beating yourself up. Instead, say, this is my shadow trying to protect me. I see you, and I'm going to take care of you. Self-compassion rewires your brain away from shame and towards healing. 3. Set small, clear boundaries. If overcommitting or people-pleasing is your pattern, practice saying no gently but firmly. Start small. Decline one request that drains you this week. Notice how it feels to honor your own limits. 4. Use grounding techniques to interrupt emotional hijacks. When you feel the urge to lash out or shut down, take 5 deep, slow breaths. Place your hand on your heart and silently say, I am safe. Focus on your feet on the ground or a physical sensation to bring yourself back to present reality. Grounding calms your nervous system and gives space for conscious choice. 5. Reframe your shadow's message. Instead of I have to prove my worth, try I am inherently worthy. Instead of if I leave first, I won't get hurt, say I can face vulnerability safely. Reframing shifts old beliefs to new truths. 6. Journal your progress. Write about moments you noticed sabotage and responded differently. Celebrate small wins. Reflection builds momentum. A healing exercise, the sabotage interrupt. Here's a quick ritual to catch self-sabotage in action. When you notice the urge to sabotage, ghost, lash out, overcommit, etc., pause. Say silently or aloud, shadow, I see you trying to protect me. Ask, what are you afraid will happen if I don't do this? Take a deep breath and decide on one small, healthier action you can take instead. Thank your shadow for trying to keep you safe and promise to listen to it more gently. Repeat this whenever sabotage arises. It trains your brain to respond with curiosity instead of autopilot. Why breaking these patterns feels so hard. Self-sabotage can feel like a comfortable enemy. It's familiar, predictable, and offers a twisted sense of control. Letting it go means facing uncertainty and vulnerability, scary territory for the shadow. Remember, your shadow's goal is protection, not punishment. It's stuck in survival mode, using old maps that don't fit your current life. Change feels risky because it's uncharted territory. Being patient with yourself during this process is crucial. Change won't happen overnight, but each small step forward weakens the shadow's grip. Real talk, when sabotage feels like progress. Sometimes sabotaging a relationship or opportunity feels like proof that you're right about yourself, that you don't deserve good things. Your shadow is testing the waters, asking, is this real? Can I trust safety? This fear is understandable, but misleading. When you interrupt sabotage with awareness and compassion, You start to prove to yourself that safety and success are possible and sustainable. Your invitation: start stopping sabotage today. You've probably been sabotaging yourself for a long time, but it's never too late to change the story. Try this. Pick one common sabotage behavior you want to change. Journal about what your shadow might be trying to protect you from in this behavior. Choose one tool from above to interrupt sabotage next time it arises. Celebrate any progress, no matter how small. Healing your shadow isn't about perfection. It's about learning to dance with your inner gremlin instead of letting it run the show. Key takeaways: self-sabotage patterns like ghosting, lashing out, overcommitting, people-pleasing, and shutting down all stem from shadow beliefs rooted in fear and unmet needs. Real-life stories show that these behaviors are attempts at protection, not failures of character. Tools like awareness, self-compassion, boundaries, grounding, reframing, and journaling empower you to create healthier patterns. Breaking sabotage feels hard because it requires facing vulnerability and uncertainty, but it's possible and profoundly freeing. Each moment of conscious choice weakens the shadow's hold and strengthens your emotional freedom. Next up, in Chapter 10, we'll explore what it really means to become whole, living in alignment with all parts of yourself, free from spiritual bypassing, and ready to build a life rooted in truth, softness, and freedom. Chapter 10, Becoming Whole, Life After the War Within. If you've been on this shadow work journey, you already know it's not about getting rid of your bad parts or achieving some flawless state of being. Instead, it's about integration, the sacred act of bringing all your fragmented pieces home, so you can finally stop fighting the war within. Becoming whole means no more spiritual bypassing, no more pretending everything's fine while ignoring the messiness underneath. It means standing in truth, embracing softness, and claiming a deep inner freedom that isn't shaken by life storms. This final chapter invites you to understand what true integration looks like, how to build a life rooted in authenticity, and offers a self-love manifesto to guide you in living fully aligned with all parts of yourself. What integration really means beyond spiritual bypassing. Integration is often misunderstood as a tidy, fixed state where your shadow magically disappears. But shadows don't vanish. They transform. They become part of your vibrant, whole self. Spiritual bypassing is the tempting trap of using spirituality to avoid pain. It's when you say things like, "I'm just going to think positive," or "it's all good," to sidestep uncomfortable feelings. While optimism and faith have their place, bypassing stops true healing in its tracks. Integration, on the other hand, is radical honesty with yourself, facing your pain, fear, shame, and doubts, not running from them. Tender self-acceptance, holding your shadows with kindness without judgment or haste. Balanced wholeness, allowing light and dark to coexist, each with their wisdom and role. Embodied presence, living grounded in your body, feelings, and truth, not just your mind or ideals. When you integrate, you stop battling yourself and start living in harmony within. This harmony ripples outward, transforming your relationships, work, and life purpose. How to build a life rooted in truth, softness, and inner freedom. Building a whole life means weaving together truth, softness, and freedom as your foundation. Here's what that looks like in practice. 1. Speak your truth without apology. Integration calls you to be honest about who you are, what you feel, and what you need, even when it's hard. Speaking your truth isn't about being harsh or hurtful. It's about clear, compassionate communication with yourself and others. You might start by setting boundaries that honor your limits, sharing your feelings openly, or choosing environments where you can be authentic. Truth-telling strengthens your integrity and dissolves the shadow's power, which thrives on secrecy and denial. 2. Embrace softness as strength. In a world that often equates strength with toughness, softness can feel like vulnerability or weakness. But softness is one of the most radical acts of courage. Softness means allowing yourself to feel deeply without numbing or armor, offering gentle kindness to your fears, mistakes, and shadows, being patient with your process and imperfections. When you practice softness, you create a safe inner environment where healing flourishes and your true self blooms. 3. Claim inner freedom beyond external validation. Freedom starts inside. It's the space where you no longer need approval, control, or perfection to feel whole. Inner freedom means trusting yourself to navigate life's uncertainties, letting go of the need to fix or change others, choosing peace over resistance, acceptance over denial. This freedom isn't about escaping challenges. It's about meeting them with presence and resilience. Your self-love manifesto, living in alignment with all parts of you. To close this journey, here's a manifesto, a loving declaration to yourself that honors every facet of who you are. I see you, the bright, joyful parts, the dark, wounded places, the messy, imperfect edges. I see you all, and I hold you with love. I am enough, not because I've earned it or fixed my flaws, but because I simply am. I am worthy of love and belonging exactly as I am. I choose honesty. I will speak my truth kindly and courageously, even when it scares me. Silence no longer serves my healing. I embrace my softness. I will nurture my fears and failures with tenderness, knowing they are part of my strength. I honor my boundaries. Saying no is a sacred yes to my well-being. I protect my energy fiercely and gently. I am the keeper of my peace. I will not give away my power to others' opinions, fears, or judgments. My calm is my reflection. I welcome the shadows. They are teachers, guides, and hidden treasures. I will walk with them as equals on this path. I choose freedom daily. Freedom from shame, from control, from old stories. Freedom to live, love, and be wildly myself. Reflective exercise, your integration check-in. Take a moment to journal or reflect on these questions. Where in my life am I still bypassing discomfort instead of feeling it? What parts of myself have I been resisting or denying? How can I speak my truth more clearly and kindly? What does softness feel like to me? How can I invite more of it? In what ways am I already experiencing inner freedom? Where do I want to grow? Allow your answers to be honest and open without rushing to fix or judge. A story of becoming whole. I once knew a woman named Grace who spent years chasing perfection. In her career, relationships, and appearance, she thought fixing her flaws would finally bring happiness. But no matter how much she achieved, she felt hollow inside. One day, Grace began shadow work and learned to meet her fears and imperfections with curiosity. She realized her relentless drive was fueled by a deep fear of not being enough. As Grace practiced integration, speaking her truth, embracing softness, and setting boundaries, she found a profound peace. It wasn't perfect, but it was real and whole. Her life didn't become easier overnight, but she carried herself with new freedom and grace. Grace had finally come home to herself. The journey never ends, and that's beautiful. Becoming whole isn't a finish line. It's an ongoing dance of light and shadow, strength and softness. Every day you get to choose presence, self-love, and freedom. This journey may challenge you, frustrate you, and sometimes break your heart, but it will also open your heart wider, than you thought possible. As you step into life after the war within, carry this truth with you. You are already whole. You have always been. Now it's time to live that truth boldly and beautifully. Thank you for walking this journey with me, for meeting your shadow, sitting with your pain, and choosing to come home to yourself. If this audiobook stirred something in you, if even one chapter helped you feel seen, I'd love for you to be part of the community we're building here. So go ahead and hit that like button. It helps more people find this work. Subscribe if you want more conversations around healing, wholeness, and self-love. And drop a comment below. I'd love to hear which chapter spoke to your soul the loudest, or how shadow work is unfolding in your life. Remember, you are not broken. You are becoming. And you never have to walk this path alone again. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, stay rooted in self-love.